Back in France, the Democratic Revolution had turned to terror. France's Revolutionary Army was at war with neighboring countries. Its radical leaders sought to purge themselves of enemies from within. They executed thousands. And in early 1793, they did the unthinkable. The revolutionary government beheaded the king. Less than 2 years after joining the rebellion, Toussaint Louverture had risen to the top of the rebel army.
I am Toussaint Louverture. My name is perhaps known to you.
In 1793, he wrote an open letter to the island's disenfranchised.
I have undertaken vengeance. I want liberty and equality to reign in Saint-Domingue. I work to bring them into existence. Unite yourselves to us, brothers, and fight with us for the same cause.
Spain controlled Saint-Domingue's neighboring colony. So in June of 1793, Toussaint struck a deal. Spanish garrisons just over the border provided guns and ammunition to the slave army and tipped the balance their way. Toussaint's forces captured 3 cities within 8 months. Saint-Domingue's white planters were desperate. Many hated the new order in France. In a treasonous move, they invited the British to help put down the slave rebellion. Now, the empires of France, Spain, and England, along with a vast army of former slaves, were fighting for control of the small island colony. The French National Assembly endorsed the emancipation of Saint-Dominguean slaves. But that was not all. The delegates freed slaves throughout the entire empire, too.
And there's rejoicing and celebration. There's an older woman, a free woman of color, who's traditionally gone to the debates, who sort of sheds tears and is brought down and celebrated as part of this moment. And there are speeches in Paris, celebrations of this event throughout France. It's really seen as a kind of triumph for the French Revolution, for the ideals of the French Revolution, that this worst form of hierarchy, enslavement, and oppression has been abolished in the Caribbean.
Word that the French Revolutionary government had freed its slaves reached Saint-Domingue quickly. It was one of history's great watersheds, and due largely to the extraordinary military accomplishments of Toussaint's army. But the credit did not rest with Toussaint alone. He had several able commanders working under him, men like Jean-Jacques Dessalines, who shared his soldiers' life experiences more closely than Toussaint.
He had deep reserves of anger and violence, but also a very intelligent man.
For Dessalines and Toussaint, emancipation changed everything. They quickly trimmed their sails to the new order. One of the biggest ripples from France that washed into Saint-Domingue's shores was a commissioner named Léger Félicité Sonthonax. He was a French revolutionary with radical ideas about life in the colony. New French commissioners had just arrived from Paris to restore order. More liberal than the planters, they urged Saint-Domingue's whites to accept the rebels' offer, and they called slave leaders to the capital of Le Cap for negotiations. Trust was minimal. Some slave rebels wanted to kill their white prisoners, but Toussaint Louverture argued against it. He wanted the whites returned to Le Cap as a gesture of goodwill.
So Toussaint is sent to negotiate with the planters with the idea that, in a sense, a settlement can be reached.
The whites said no. They said no.
Of course, he's taken up arms against them. But at the same time, he's made a lot of concessions, and he's struggled against his own followers. And to have that refused by the planter class, I think certainly must have had a radicalizing effect.
Toussaint's support for a settlement abruptly ended, and with it, the best deal the whites would ever see. After 3 years in opposition, Toussaint Louverture was once again a loyal French citizen. So were his followers. It tipped the balance. Before long, Toussaint Dessalines and the army of ex-slaves pushed the Spanish out of Saint-Domingue. The British soon followed. Word of Toussaint's astonishing string of victories against white armies was spreading across the European world. Toussaint had already been appointed Brigadier General and then Governor of Saint-Domingue. No black man had ever risen so far in the colonies. But Toussaint had a rival. The beloved French civil commissioner, Félicité Sonthonax. And in 1797, Toussaint in fact no longer needed Sonthonax. In a series of political maneuvers, he isolated the civil commissioner. Then in August, he forced Sonthonax off the island. Toussaint Louverture had triumphed again.